I haven't seen this video either. I haven't seen the teaser video.
Catalysts have revitalized ancient techniques for channeling elemental forces, with a few modern improvements. They use jade tech spheres to create concentrated wells of immense power. Using their augment abilities within range of the spheres enhances their effect.
So it's the sphere that's gonna do the fields, and that's what changes. Oh, that's cool. I was really hoping it wouldn't be jade tech though. I was really hoping that it would be arcane, but it's okay. This is cool. I like it.
With the weight of Tyria's fundamental magics behind every blow from their hammers, these elementalists are a steady presence in melee combat.
I like that they're all dragons too, that show up for the fields. Yeah, but they all look, that's what they all look like though, just different forms.
All right, it is Catalyst time.
Okay,
Here we go.
I'm ready.
I hear it's near and dear to your heart.
It's near and dear to my heart.
So tell us about the Catalyst.
Absolutely. So for our Ellie mains out there, and I know we've got Ruby, we've got a Cal. I'm not.
Wait, I didn't know Ruby was actually an Ellie main. I've seen her post a ton of stuff on Twitter, and like we've actually like bantered a little bit back and forth, and some people were excited to see us talking, but I didn't know that Ruby was actually an Ellie main. That's fun. I'm an Ellie main. For those of you who don't know and are just coming in and following for the first time or viewing the stream for the first time, I'm an Ellie main. So, is it a Phoenix? Oh, okay. I didn't see the turtle. A dragon turtle. Hey man, same thing.
I'm a mesmer main.
I don't understand. How do you do it?
It's self-punishment or something.
I'm a garbage mesmer.
But Ellie was my very first class that I played in Guild Wars 2 back when I started the game in college. So it is very near and dear to my heart. But more importantly, Catalysts kind of go back into that theme of having a little bit of an ancient sort of history to them. They were casters from an era bygone, ancient Cantha. Similar to the Willbender, they were protectors of the nation, but not necessarily the they were warriors.
I like piano classes,
but
man.
More importantly, the biggest
Weaver.
part of this class is that
I like
utilize
Tempest.
this
I
really
love
advanced
Weaver.
technology called
So I'm excited
sphere.
for this.
And in modern days in Cantha, that sphere has been a little bit upgraded into what we call a jade tech sphere or a jade sphere. And now spheres are conduits to the elementalist immense power. And they kind of function similarly to a engineer's gyro, and that you kind of summon it.
That's what it looks like.
It floats around a little bit, and there's all sorts of fun aspects to do with that. But when I approached writing it, I kind of went with this sort of theme of like a traditional wizard, or so to say. They summon imagery from elements.
I didn't play staff for anything
all
else.
over Tyria, and they imbue that magic.
I'm
into the
having
sphere.
fun playing Staff Weaver.
And as you channel,
but I didn't really mess with it until like you mentioned it. So
that are known in Cantha.
That's on me.
That's somewhat of an homage to the celestial beings. And I'm excited for Cal to get into this one. And this was also the first thing that I got to work on with Cal once joining the studio. And Cal's a combat design rock star, so I'm excited to pick his main brain about this a little bit more too.
Yay!
Yeah.
All right, we're hopping into the Catalyst. Notably, these are definitely not the celestial creatures. We definitely saw a lot of feedback on the Reddit. I mean, clearly we have like, there's a Kirin, there's a Salt Spray, there's a Turtle, there's a Phoenix. These are, yes, those are the creature shapes that are the same as the celestial beings, but that wouldn't really make any sense to conjure those as like kind of elemental manifestations. So these are just more, elemental manifestations.
An homage to
that. Definitely an homage, kind of that nod to Not the Quarter from Guild Wars 1. So hopping into it, for some reason we decided to give elementals a hammer, 20 skills. We have a lot to get through here. We're going to try to speed it up a little bit. I'm going to talk really
Me, no, it's fun to play. Like, I love swapping, and I swap through stuff really fast. CMC, yeah, it's 20 skills. We're gonna have a lot to get through, and I'm over here like, and more. There's an extra.
bit fast. Maybe not that fast, but we'll start with the progression mechanic before we get into the hammer. We'll press some buttons. This is giving me access to energy. You can see the energy bar kind of charging up here above the F5 skill. very similar to how Warrior Adrenaline works, where hit enemies get energy. And that's going to...
Yep, that's it. This was made for me. You know why? Because it's in your face, and I was all excited about being a battle mage, which is why I wanted to play Dual Dagger, and why I loved Weaver so much. And he's literally like, yeah, this gauge works like, you know, the one you've seen on Warrior. It's for me. It's for me.
to enable you to deploy, I'm just going to cheat at this point, deploy the Jade Sphere. And this is going to create essentially what is a spell area on the ground. That the primary goal here is that it's going to be, see I'm building up might, this is a fire field. If I cast it on an enemy, this is actually also going to do a little bit of damage. In competitive modes, this damage pulse is very, very low. It's actually
did it say...
0.01 multiplier. A lot to get through here. We're going to try to speed it up a little bit. I'm going to talk. Did
he say the duration?
Maybe not that fast, but we'll start with the compression mechanic before we get into the hammer. Press some buttons. This is giving me access to energy. You can see the energy bar kind of charging up here above the F5 skill.
Yeah, and he didn't say how long that was yet either, I don't
where hit enemies get energy. And that's going to enable you to deploy, I'm just going to cheat at this point, deploy the Jade Sphere.
There it goes.
And he's going to do, this is going to create...
But I didn't see it, that's why I rewound it.
Spell area on the ground. That the primary goal here is that it's going to be, see I'm building up might, this is a fire field. If I cast it on an enemy, this is actually also going to do a little bit of damage. In competitive modes, this damage pulse is very, very low. It's actually using the 0.01 multiplier because the primary value of the skill is the boons, it is the combo field, but that was not quite up to what we really needed it to be in PvE, so we put a damage pulse on there and just put it really, really low to make sure that it didn't create too much of a problem. So the cool thing of this is that it's going to swap with your element. I'm in Fire Attunement. I summon the Fire Jade.
Oh, so you don't have to recast it?
Now I have the Water.
Oh, it's only when you swap.
Resolution,
That's what I was saying.
Swap the air.
You can
Lightning Field is giving me quickness. Very exciting.
And while it's channeling, swap.
Finally, once we get into Earth, this is a Poison Field. There's
so
combo field type. So we talked a little bit internally about, okay, what thematically makes sense. There are a few options.
That is so cool.
Talk through Earth, talk through Dark. Smoke fields, I mean, I brought it up and then we're like, no, bad idea, don't give AoE stealth. That got shut down in about 5 seconds, but it was...
Please.
It was on the table for just a small amount of time and it just got knocked off. No longer on the table. Went with Poison Field.
Right,
Poison Field,
I get it, but I still
is a valuable
think...
thing to have for the kind of bruiser playstyle that we're going to see with this character, because blast finishing in that is going to be...
It's cool to get the finishers that you need, though.
So honestly, nothing.
Especially getting like a blast finisher into that.
We're gonna have a lot of combos in the hammer kit itself that are going to play really well off of those combo fields. You don't actually need a field on the hammer kit at all. Let me just make sure we hit all the tooltips for these deploy skills real quick.
And just making sure that you have a field for every, like that's really cool.
Using them in particular Jade Sphere areas is going to give you a little bit of a bonus effect.
Yeah.
All right, let's get through the hammer skills rapid fire. 20 skills to get through. We previewed a little bit of the kind of the melee gameplay of this character. It's also going to have kind of some mid-range elements in fire.
I mean,
and air.
That's already super cool.
Water and earth, and then more of a mid-range DPS character in fire air. And that's because when we're thinking about what is the hammer, what space does this exist for in the Elementalist, the very natural kind of understanding of what is a hammer is this slow-moving, deliberate, lumbering melee bruiser character, but for the Elementalist, Dagger exists in a lot of that space already, so we don't just want to stomp over Dagger and say, okay, here's Hammer.
Exactly.
Hammer
don't step over Dagger.
The new melee bruiser weapon. So we kind of left a few of those elements there as kind of water and earth, and then made a lot more of the aggressive damage components of this. It was more of a melee or a mid-range character. And so starting off, I'm actually going to start off with skill 3 here, because this is kind of a shared mechanic across all 4 attunements. We're going to see this summons a projectile circling around the catalyst, and this is going to hit enemies that it passes through. Pretty exciting stuff. More of a melee skill here, but notably this does give you access to a little bit of a boost, and it's going to be variable per attunement. We're going to see fire gives you outgoing damage. Makes sense. So even if you are kind of standing at range, you're still going to get value at the skill because you get some damage bonus. Fire off the rest of my abilities, get some bonus damage there. And then we're going to have, I'm a little bit too slow there, but you see we have to flip over that recasts this circular projectile at my target. So we're really going to want to maximize the uptime of how long I get this damage buff before firing off the skill. But then the super cool interaction is that when I go into water and summon the water projectile, it actually refreshes the duration of all of the other projectiles. So you see now I got 3 going, hop into Earth. I have
It
all 4 of
refreshes
these
the
projectiles.
duration
All these are
and
giving me buffs.
stacks.
Then you can refire, throw all 4 of those projectiles at your target, and that's going to be
Fire
kind
them
of
all
big
off.
damage.
Oh, that
on
is
this
so
kit.
cool.
And so we see
I was
here
saying,
now
it was
going
like
into the cool
rewarding
tooltip,
you
we start
for
with
swapping
each of
all
these
your-
circle
Wait.
projectiles.
Grand finale. Burning, vuln, weakness, and bleeding. For all of those. Oh. Oh, that's so many conditions. I know, it really is a true avatar state. That's cool.
Projectiles are going to be a little bit of damage, a little bit of condition, but the circling component is going to be a little bit lower, and then once you refire it, get that grand finale is what the skill is actually called. You get a higher damage, higher condition application there. So real quick, the buffs here: Earth gives you damage reduction, Air gives you critical chance, Water gives you Condi damage reduction, and as we touched on with Fire, it gives you access to that increased outgoing damage. So it's going to create some really interesting gameplay. I fired a skill I didn't want to, but that's okay. Create kind of this really interesting gameplay where you're going to be wanting to move through your attunements and fire off these abilities that we'll come back to real quick, making sure that you're casting your spells and getting these refreshes on these
Oh, that's going to be so much fun.
Before they
Just
expire,
to sit there
and
and
then
cycle
culminating in
through
the big
everything
kind of finale
and
at
just
the
cycle
end.
my field while it's up to and just throw
So
everything.
this
Oh my
gives a
God.
little bit. One of the goals here was also to give a little bit more incentive to even go into water and earth, for especially in PvE modes where just a little bit. You care a little bit less about those. You want to maximize damage, but now you'll want to duck in for even just a second, cast the circular projectile, extend the rest of your damage buffs, and maximize the damage of that skill. So let's hop back.
One of the things I was seeing on Twitter a lot, though, is people being like, another melee Ellie spec. Like, people were actually upset about it, and I was like, this looks so fun!
Into the fire kit and just hammer through these
Yep,
skills.
post
A lot
gem
of,
in chat
a lot
if you
of
would like
damage, a lot of
something off the
burning on
gem
these skills.
store.
Nothing too out of place for the hammer, or for the fire attunement on elementalist, that is.
I
Recommend
like
having a
it.
target
I
for
think
any
this is
projectile
better, but
skills.
only because it's
Singeing
near and
strike
dear
is
to
just
me.
a burning plus damage. Nothing too crazy. Moving into surging flames, this is a different flavor of that skill, of a projectile skill. This is not going to use the same shotgun style mechanic that we see on stuff like Fan of Fire, but the idea here is because we're looking to target this more mid-range gameplay with fire attunement, this is only going to hit each target once. And you see there's a little bit of a cooldown protection there when I cheat and have no recharge. That's going to make sure this doesn't multi-hit, because then we can guarantee, okay, this is always going to do a
Of
good
course they
amount of
did.
damage when I'm playing this character from kind of this mid-range style, and I don't need to dive into melee range because it's a little bit more dangerous. We do have some better defensive options in traits and some of the utilities, because, I mean, we meme about how elementalists always go into downstate and die and all that fun stuff. We do want to make sure there's a few more better
No, we meme that about Weaver. Not Elementalist. Weaver.
defensive options to this character.
Thank you.
And so we'll get to those in a little bit. And again, keeping range as the main damaging components there. Moving into Triple Seer, we already talked about Flame Wheel here, so Triple Seer is up next. This is kind of a different style of an AoE damage skill. You see it summons actually 3 different spell areas,
Yeah.
and each of these has its own kind of unique target cap, and they all have a much lower damage than you'd expect, because the idea is you want to line them up perfectly. Come over to this golem over here who still has vulnerability from a long time ago. But if you line it up perfectly, all 3 of these hits, that's going to maximize the damage, maximize the burning. So this is going to play really well off crowd control skills, or just enemies that don't move, like these golems or bosses in PvE.
Right.
And finally, we're going to have Molten End. So we saw a lot of
thanks,
burning
Switch, for the
on
follow.
literally all their 4 skills in this kit.
Yeah,
apply
it's not
burning.
terrible.
So
Mid-range
Molten End
isn't
here, the
bad.
final skill, is going to
I mean-
reward you for striking a burning enemy, is going to give you access to Might and Fury per target struck. So that guy gave me 1.
Wait.
Saw a lot of burning.
Slam your hammer into the ground, damaging nearby enemies. If this strikes a burning enemy, gain offensive boons. Might per burning target. And this is where I wish there were AoE caps. Because the amount of blast finishers I've actually, like, even just on core, the amount of blast finishers I've actually used, and if I can use that, like, in my utilities, depending on how these utilities are, and have it be on more than 5. It's cool, though, that it's per burning, though. Per burning target. Might and Fury.
On literally all their 4 skills in this kit apply burning, and so Molten End here, the final skill, is going to reward you for striking a burning enemy. Is going to
I don't know
give
what's
you
on the gem store right
access
now.
To Might and Fury.
Whatever
perkers.
you
So
want that I can
1.
gift to you that is worth
Over
500
here, it's
gems.
going to give me a little bit more, longer Fury duration, more Might stacks. And again, this is a blast finisher, so playing well with Jade Sphere, while I'm in fire attunement, is going to give me access to Might stacks. Alternatively, it has this kind of delayed cast time, so there's the opportunity to start casting this ability, switch into water, and then if you move into that field in time, that's going to give you the area blast finisher in a water field AoE healing, which is a little bit more valuable.
That's cool.
We're going to go over to the air attunement next, because we're going to go through damage and then damage, and we'll come back to the kind of melee bruisery style gameplay from water and air. So, air attunement, wind slam, nothing crazy. Projectile deals damage. We already touched on Crescent Wind here as well, so next up is Hurricane of Pain. This is the channeled kind of AoE, kind of that 100 Blades style, rapid fire, channeled big damage skill on the 2 slot. So the idea here is that the Ellie spins their hammer so quickly, and then redirects their elemental energy and shoots it off into this targeted hurricane.
Can we just watch that again? Did you see CMC explaining this? It's like
From water and air.
Redirects their energy, and you shoot it off.
Wind slam, nothing crazy. Projectile deals damage. We already touched on Crescent Wind here as well, so next up is Hurricane of Pain.
Thank you for the follow.
This is the channeled kind of AoE, kind of that 100 Blades style, rapid fire, channeled big damage skill on the 2 slot. So the idea here is that the Ellie spins their hammer so quickly, and then redirects their elemental energy and shoots it off into this targeted hurricane over here by all these golems.
I don't know. I didn't see.
It looks like it.
Energy and
I don't
shoots it off into
think
this.
it does. I don't think it.
Energy and shoots it off into this targeted hurricane over here by all these golems. This is kind of the big damage payoff. You really want to set this up with CC. Moving into Windstorm. This is something that we saw in the video where people were worried about going off cliffs. Well,
So that's the other thing. Is
just
it kind of
pay attention to
like
your surroundings. It's probably not that big a deal. But the idea here is here's the kind of the disengage,
the
knockdown on
channeling
there as well.
that we
But this
had
is a little
earlier,
bit
where
of
you had to wait for everything? Like
if someone's
on
diving you,
Blade
knock them
Swarm?
down, back up, respace, get into that mid-range style
You could
again.
almost be like a
and
sitting
really
duck for
maximize
that
your
too.
damage without being able to be pressured. And then
Yeah.
finally here we have Shock Blast.
People are
So this is another kind of, this is a much slower moving projectile. You see, we throw it out, going to pierce through enemies while it's moving.
kinda
Once
cool.
it lands on the ground, we're going to have this kind of delayed explosion, and that's going to be another stun. So some nice crowd control here.
No,
on the
I haven't
air
yet.
kit. And again, this is a kind of a
Oh,
delayed
nice!
finisher
That's
blast.
awesome.
Delayed blast finisher.
Well, I
so you can
appreciate
throw
you
this
checking out my
switch
stream
to
frames, and I
get the field
actually
you want,
came
and get that
from
blast finisher.
Final Fantasy 14 as well.
Next up, we're
Still
going to move
planning
into
on
water.
checking
so this is
out
already getting
the
into
live
that,
letter
getting back
later
to
this
that melee
evening.
style we see here with the auto attack combo. Nothing too
And
crazy.
we have a pretty
Chill on the
amazing
third hit.
community, so if you have any
Again,
questions,
kind
let
of
people
this
know.
thing that melee
And we
characters
have
wanna see.
a pretty awesome guild
Second skill.
where we do raid training, fractal training. We're getting into PvP and World v World. We have people on to answer any of your questions, and we also have a really cool guild hall. So, and the expansion is coming out soon. So if you'd like a guild invite, you should join the Discord and let us know. Oh yeah, for sure. Save Elementalist life. No, I'm gonna rewind it. Rewind it.
Knockdown on there as well, but this is a little bit of if someone's diving you, knock them down, back up, respace,
that's
get
cool.
into that mid-range style again, and really maximize your damage without being able to be pressured. And then finally here we have Shock Blast. So this is another kind of, this is a much slower moving projectile. You see, we throw
And
it out.
thank you so much for the follows,
kind of
guys. I
pierce through
appreciate
enemies
it.
while it's moving.
Make sure you
Once it
turn on
lands the ground, we're gonna have this
notifications.
kind
I
of delayed
stream
explosion,
pretty
that's gonna
much
be
every
another
day,
stun.
just at different times.
Some nice
so.
crowd control here on the air attunement kit. And again, this is a kind of a delayed finisher blast, delayed blast finisher, so you can throw this out, switch attunements, get the field you want, and get that blast finisher. Next up, we're going to move into
It's
water.
cool that
so
they
this is
set it
already
up
getting into
that way for the
Getting
delayed-
back into that melee style we
delay.
see here with the auto attack combo. Nothing too crazy. Chill on the third hit. Again, kind of this thing that melee characters want to see. Second skill, we have Rain of Blows. more chill. This is 3-second chill and a 6-second cooldown.
That looks cool,
Pretty
though,
notable.
hitting with the hammer
But the
like
caveat
that.
here is you have to hit all 4 of these hits against the same target. So rewarding you for either crowd
For
control or
what?
just sticking to your target. A little bit of damage on there as well. Some potentially high chill uptime
give
if
Eddie
you
a treat?
maximize that space.
I'm good. I'm actually having a lot of fun checking
Skipped
this
over
out.
Icy
You guys
Coil,
have been
'cause we already talked
amazing
about
and
that one.
supportive. We hit
Next up we
a
have Crashing Font. So here's some
hype
mobility. You can
train.
use this to go in. You can use this to kind of reposition and
that's
go out
cool.
if you need to. Ideally, you're going to go in because it's going to reward you for hitting targets. And it's going to heal per target struck. So hop in there. This is also a
Oh,
loop finisher.
nice.
Fire this off
a
in the
heal per
water
target
sphere,
struck and
give you a little bit of
everything.
healing on top.
Although it'll be
And
really
just a
nice
pretty
to be
big
able
heal
to
if you do hit
actually
all 5
have
targets. That's also going to set up
even
the
more to
final
get
skill,
in
this
and out
great
of
Cleansing
combat, too.
Typhoon. This is going to be a similar kind of PvE
And it can work as a
hammer swing
disengage
that
or a
gives
gap
you
closer,
access, or
plus
it's going to
your
cleanse a condition per target struck. So
dodges.
again, maximize your targets, maximize the value of these skills. Moving into Earth, we're going to see a little bit more defense, more tankiness, more crowd control. Nothing crazy on the auto attack skill here. Stone Strike, just PB damage. Second up, we have Whirling Stones, another kind of much slower, more deliberate channel.
There you
Earth
go.
is a
There's
little
your
bit less
whirling
aggressive,
ability
so it's kind
that
of
does damage just by the
a little bit
hammer when you're on
slower in
top
how
of
it deals
them.
with damage,
And
but
it
it still has
bleeds
a
too,
reasonable
so
damage potential from the skill. A lot of bleeding, a lot of damage. If you really maximize all those hits. Rocky Loop again, that's the circular projectile of the Earth Attunement. Next up we have Immutable Stones. This is going to be a single shot, single attack block. This is a mechanic we've seen in a lot of skills across the game, where you block an attack and you get a reward for blocking an attack. In this case, the reward is an aura. And that aura is actually based on your active attunement. So if we just fire off a skill here real quick, if I can type correctly.
You're
Block
really
that's-
committed to not clicking skills.
Well, I have to type so that to tell the golem, hey, use a skill on me. As you see, I got Magnetic Aura. But there's a little bit of a window here, especially because the block is also channeled. I can start channeling this block, then switch to air. That's going to give me
Well,
shocking aura
I'm
instead.
working a
So
second
depending on
job.
the situation, you might want to
So,
get a different aura depending on, I mean,
like,
melee range
stream
blocking was much
has
better.
been my
Maybe
main
just
source of
want
income, and
amplification,
now I have
frost aura,
another
fire
job,
aura,
so I have to work
whatever.
around the job. For
All those
stream.
things are available with
So I'm still
Immutable
trying to
Stones.
stream pretty much every
And then finally
day.
we
It's
have
just going to
Ground
be
Pound. So
different
this is
hours. But I'm going to be
kind
back
of that big,
to the normal
big
time
crowd control,
on
also
the
the blast
weekends.
finisher
So.
of the Earth Attunement. Instead of just doing another knockdown, that's something the dagger already does. So again, trying to create a little bit more space between those two play styles. This is going to be a longer duration immobilize, and that allows us to put a little more damage, a little bit of bleeding on top of that.
And that's
So
a
again,
blast
that
finisher
very long
too.
wind up and a really big shockwave there, applying immobilize and bleeding. So next up, we're going to move into the utility skills. So these are augments. That's another skill type that we kind of didn't have something that we wanted to, something existing, made up augments. What is an augment? For the most part, these are kind of duration-based buffs, and we're going to see a few different flavors of these again. And the notable kind of bonus is that if you use these in the matching element sphere, all of these are going to have a particular element that they are kind of associated with. It's going to give you a little bonus. So we start here with Soothing Water. This is just going to be a pretty basic pulse heal over time, nothing too crazy. If you use this while you're inside the
It's
water
pretty.
sphere, you won't actually see
Yep.
it on this usage because I don't have any conditions, but each of these
That's
pulses
what I was
will
saying,
then
'cause he was saying it
cleanse
was a
a
longer
condition as
cast, and I was
So
like,
a
oh,
little bit
that's not
extra
that
value
bad.
there on
And it's
top.
kind of cool how you're suspended in the air for
Next,
a
I'm going to
second,
hop
and then
over
you do
to
it.
Fortified Earth, which is going to be the Earth Augment. This one is kind of where we really felt the need to give LE access to a good defensive utility skill. Obviously, we have like Mistform as a hard invul and a longer cooldown. Earth Shield a little bit more clunky to use to get that invul longer cooldown. Fortified Earth, just a pretty standard channeled block. This is something that LE doesn't really have access to. So giving them access to this on a 30-second cooldown
It's not bad.
should kind of enable that melee style a little bit better than some of the existing options. And the
It's
slight bonus
literally
here is that
LE
used
Warrior.
inside the Earth sphere,
Let me
I am
give
going to
myself
get
a
failure on top.
shield. A legit shield.
Next up, we're going to move to Invigorating Air. So here's the Stun Break, another pretty reasonable defensive cooldown because it's going to increase your endurance regeneration, which is relevant if I don't have infinite endurance. Yep. So endurance regeneration, nothing crazy. We've seen it before. The bonus here is super speed, a little bit, not the most exciting, but Stun Break, defensive value.
Oh, and again, if
And
anyone
finally,
wants
we're going to
anything
have-
off the gem store,
quite
type
finally,
gem
but
into
next up we have
chat, and
Shattering
you can
Ice.
win.
So the idea behind Shattering
item
Ice is that it
that is
makes
worth
all of your
500
attacks have a splash damage component. There's an ICD on this, kind of similar to One Wolf Pack, but instead of the single target extra hit, this is going to give you a multi-target extra hit. And the idea, one of the goals here is that it gives you more. More
Sorry,
energy
guys,
if
been
you
a long
play more
day.
Targets will use bonus strikes. Cast this inside the water sphere. All those bonus attacks are
Yeah.
giving you a little bit of chill there.
That's what I was hoping for the other to get the splash damage from, for the explosion from the shells.
Relentless Fire. So here's the Fire Augment, and this one's very straightforward, just increased outgoing damage. If you use it inside the Fire Sphere, it makes your attacks unblockable, so it really allows you to unleash kind of the maximum damage potential of this character. And finally, last up, we have the elite skill, Elemental Solarity. This is effectively cooldown reduction.
Your strikes reduce the cooldown of your equipped weapon skills. If this is activated in range of your sphere, gain a boon based on the current element.